Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to people around the world. This is Martin Hugel, your host for the DB2Night Show. And this is a really extra special show today because it's our first show on DB2 for ZOS version 13. I guess at this point I should play some cheers or something. Yay. And with that in mind, our audience is still joining us, but I've got the preliminaries to go through, which I will do. And we've got an extra special thing in our opening. We've got Chris Munkin here from IDUG, who's going to tell us all what we need to know to justify coming to the DB2 conference in Boston in July. So with that in mind, let's get things moving along. As always, here's our social media. You want to know what's going on with the DB2Night Show, follow Twitter. Our hashtag is DB2Night. And replays are available on YouTube, and that's becoming more and more popular as time goes on. People don't need to download anything anymore, except for perhaps the PDF. And I'm hoping that you would make that available to us, Anthony, afterwards. People always love to see your slide deck. And with that in mind, here's our disclaimer. I used to read this out, but it basically says there are copyrights. We respect them. There are and the standard disclaimers of what people do with the information. There are everything's recorded, and you can see things later as a replay copyright 2022. All right, other quick announcements. We have 2 more shows left for this season 13 of the DB2Night Show. Next is our DB2 LUW show with Michael Rorken of the IBM Toronto Lab, and the working title there is a recovery update, but that includes all the things that have happened with advanced log management and a whole bunch of different things in the recovery area that Michael will share with us. And the last show of the year will be Francis Villafuerte talking of high availability, efficiency, and application stability with DB2 13. So that will be another great show on 13. It's interesting how fast we move into a new release, isn't it? And as always, we have our founding sponsor of the DB2Night Show, which we're incredibly grateful. The DBI makes the GoToWebinar platform available to us. And they've got a new web performance suite out for DB2 LUW, and you can follow that on their website. It's a great product. Our winner from last week was David Churn of Associated Wholesale Grocers. I don't know, David, if you're still in Kansas City. We've met on several occasions. He's a great guy, and congratulations to you. All right, another big news here is I mentioned that the co-host of the DB2Night Show, good old Charlie, passed on just after Christmas. We were sad and missing him terribly, and we were in need of more co-hosts for the show. And we had a package deal show up, a bonded pair of Chihuahuas. My daughter rescues Chihuahuas for the Texas Chihuahua Rescue Canada Inc. And these 2 guys joined us on Monday, and they are absolutely delightful. They're just wonderful little dogs. And they just amuse me. They delight me every time I look at them. That's Lacey and Lily. And yes, they've got those big ears, and they both have really big hearts too. As always, we again thank our sponsors, which is DBI, Martin Hubel Consulting. And with that, before we move into the polls, Chris, I'm going to turn things over to you so you can do the IDUG information.
Absolutely. Thank you, Martin. Appreciate it.
And you should have that message on your screen now.
You should see my screen. Just
I do. Sure you look wonderful.
Awesome. So thank you again, Martin. Again, as Martin mentioned, my name is Chris Munkin. I'm one of the IDUG reps. I'm on the IDUG CPC, so the Conference Planning Committee, and the presentations team lead this year. So getting really in-depth and a lot of knowledge into the inner workings of how IDUG works and a lot of the presentations. So I give a little demo, a little presentation of why IDUG and why it's important, how it helps, and how we can help it as well. So a little bit of history. What is IDUG? It's an international DB2 user group, leading independent user-driven community that provides a direct channel to thousands of professional DB2 users across the globe. Okay, so that's kind of our mission statement. That's what we thrive to be and achieve. And why IDUG? Why is IDUG important? You can always head over to idug.org, get all the information there. Really, I mean, we've been around for over 30 years. It unites DB2 professionals globally. As you can tell, by our prospectus, we have attendees all across the planet, from EMEA, North America, India, Australia, Latin America, really everywhere. We do have the DB2 forums, or as as quickly known, the list serve. So it's still up and running. It's always a great place to ask questions, and it's a great place for also social networking for like-minded individuals. It's we get together, we have meetups, we meet up at the conferences. And we talk shop a lot of times. Also, another benefit to it, IDUG, at the conference there are certifications, complimentary certifications, I might add. Plus, IDUG also supports our regional user groups, or our RUGs. So, such as a RUG that Martin and I are involved with, the CENCAN, or Central Canada DB2 User Group, CCDUG, and I'll show you a slide later on, because we are also having our RUG meeting September 19th and 20th as an in-person event in Toronto. So something to consider too. So again, then that's another way that IDUG supports us through the RUGs. So again, at IDUG, a great thing to do, come out to IDUG in Boston, Massachusetts this year, July 11th to the 14th. There are over 100 educational sessions. Get to meet up and discuss with the local experts of the products. You get to work with people such as Anthony and John Lyle, who are also presenting too. They'll be there presenting other topics, talking about DB213, AI, and a whole bunch of other topics there at IDUG. We also do have hands-on labs and workshops. Again, as I did mention, there is the complimentary DB2 certification and the badging opportunities. Plus, there's networking. Oh, another thing I wanted to add, we do have a back to basics themed content. So we're looking at the building blocks of what is DB2 and what's the DB2 core principles of what we're trying to achieve. Little content showcase for y'all. So we do kind of touch all aspects from Z to LUW, or Z, depends on where you are, ZOS, LUW, and we also have a whole plethora of app dev too. So some great content. As I did mention, we do have Anthony Shabatoni talking about DB213 and his good old SWAT tales. So some tales of the SWAT. Gets to kind of talk about some experiences that he's seen throughout other shops. So it's always a great thing to listen on. Also, a little plug for our user group, Martin. The CENCAN CCDUG 2022 is coming to Toronto. Again, IDUG does support us with this as well. So this is how IDUG supports the RUGs, right? So we do get out and we get people out. CCDUG is happening September 19th and 20th. It's an in-person event in Toronto. The first time that we're going to be in person in 3 years. So we're really looking forward to it. It'll be a great event there. And we're going to have a lot of the IDUG speakers presenting for us as well. So a lot of that great content that IDUG has, we're able to kind of carve off and share that with other individuals kind of north of the border. Some links for you as well, and this presentation will be made available for Martin after the fact. So you can go and take a look at what IDUG has to offer, and especially for North America 2022. And don't forget, IDUG EMEA is, they are coming to Edinburgh, Scotland, October 22nd to the 26th. Third time's the charm, I believe, for Edinburgh. So it will be happening in Edinburgh, and they're still looking for additional presentations. So there's a link to submit presentations if you're still interested. They'd be more than happy to take some for you as well. And again, that's all I have for IDUG piece. So again, thank you very much for that 5-minute spot there, Martin. I appreciate it. And with that, I will flip it over to you.
All righty.
And there you
I'll take
go.
it back for just a minute.
Yep. Thanks again.
I just need to find out how to do that. Okay, it actually made me presenter right off the tick there. That's great. Okay, we're just going to do our studio audience polls as we always do. And the first thing we're going to do is, well, what's going on here? Hello. All right. I'm not able to click on it. That's the first time that's ever happened.
Did I break it, Martin?
Oh, show my screen. Sorry. I had to click on something. Duh. Yeah. Can you see my screen there saying polls?
Yes. So I see move your mouse.
Yes. Okay. Let me just go in here and make sure that I have everything working the way I expected in here. See if it works over here now. Well, that's the first time ever. Oh, that's strange. Okay. It'll tell me what, all right, there we go. Can you see that poll up now?
Nope, don't see the poll. You
Right.
see just the move your mouse. Oh, there we go. Their poll's up now.
It was burping there, I guess.
Oh, I can't vote. Oh,
Oh, yeah. We know you'd say only good things. All right, that's good enough. We'll close that off. And we'll share that result. And we see that most people are on, well, everybody's saying the highest is version 12. That's good news. Some people are a little new. Some people are quite on with it. That's great news. Next poll. This is just the how long have you been working with DB2 question? We've got a relatively senior audience today. I was thinking through this with the new release presentations, and I went through and counted. I've attended 16 of these. And how did I get to 16? Well, I was on DB2 version 1, release 1, and then 2 and 1.2, 1.3, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. So it's really 13 plus another 3. All right, we've got that voted. Very senior audience today. Good looking as well, I'm sure. There we are. And we'll hide that. And the last question is, when do you plan to move to DB213? And this is also very interesting. No. All right, we'll close that off and share that. And you can see that most people are aiming for 2023, and we include later in there. That's most of the audience, with one person likely wanting to go this year. So with that, I'll close that off, and I will then move on and turn it over to Anthony. He'll make you the presenter.
Okay. So I'll do a sound check. Martin, can you hear me okay?
I can. You sound great. Now, where's that reprobate known as John Lyle?
Yeah, where's that migration guru? I think he's on as an attendee. So
Oh,
you might have to
here he is.
him.
I found him.
Okay, so I want to.
John, you're now a panelist, and you can participate.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Perfect.
We can hear you.
You sound just like you.
and there's only one. And there's only one John Lyle in this world. Thank goodness.
Right.
Good and bad.
I ain't touching that one.
Yeah, me neither.
So thanks, Martin. So I'm Anthony Shabatoni, and I'm joined today. John Lyle and I are going to co-present this DB213 migrations, function levels, and continuous delivery. It's quite interesting. Both John and I are reporting up to the lab, the same management chain in the lab, but we're at completely different ends of the United States, with John being up at the lab and me being way down south east in Miami, or near Miami. So it's always fun to get together with John. So as most of you guys probably already heard, we announced GA for DB2 version 13 a couple 3 weeks ago. So it's going to become GA here in the end of the month, early into June. And so what our goal, John and I's goal here is to ultimately get you to the point where you're ready for DB2 13. But we're going to backtrack and talk through where you are at today, i.e. the continuous delivery, your current function levels, and how to get to version 13. And the ultimate goal, once we get to 13, and John, we proudly present the slides, is the ability to have the easiest DB2 migration of all time. That's our ultimate goal, and you guys could grade us on this afterwards. And so if I look at the numbers that Martin put up, there's 81% of the customer base that are on today that are less than function level 507. So I think this is going to be a good leeway, and part of it's going to be review, part of it's going to be hopefully some new things, and some other thoughts of how you could get to function level 5, 10, and 13 as quickly as possible. So before I start off an agenda, John, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, hi, thanks, Anthony. So I'm John Lyle, and I'm in development in DB2, and my main priority has been the migration, install, fallback, coexistence, and that arena. So I've been working on the migration arena since version 4. So, you know, I'm constantly working to better the process, and as Anthony alluded to, we'll talk about it here in this presentation, the version 13 process is very different than anything that we've done before. And so, you know, I'm real excited to talk about this and the innovation involved. And, you know, we're not going to stop here. We're going to continue to work down this path as we go forward. So, but that's who I am. And I love speaking to customers. So I hope to see everybody at the various IDUGs tech conferences and shares. And so, yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
Okay. And so when I mentioned that we want your grade when we go to version 13, we really mean it. So if you, as John presents, we are committed, and John is passionate to just make this migration process the best experience you could have. So with that being said, here's our agenda for today. And John and I are going to go back and forth. We're going to just do a review of DB2 continuous delivery because it's part of version 12. It was new in version 12, and the same processes and same infrastructure is going to go for a discipline. Will go forward with DB2 version 13, so no difference. Then I'll turn it over to Sean, and he'll go through the function level journey from 501 all the way to 510. With that, we'll also then talk through a little bit as a transitionary into version 13 migration. How can I get to function level 510 as quickly as possible? Because function level 510 is the gateway. You must be there prior to migrating to version 13. Now, I have the bold item there at the bottom, ask questions. At the end, I encourage if anyone has any questions, pose it, put it in the chat, and we'll answer as we go. We would like to keep this as interactive as possible. So feel free to interrupt. Martin's going to keep an eye on the chat questions. So continuous delivery, here's just a review. So prior to version 12, all the PTFs and APARs that came through the maintenance process through PTFs were fixing problems for the most part. There is a slight little bit here and there with adding new functionality. But now, with continuous delivery, that chain, that conveyor belt of fixes are both going to be defect fixes, the normal PTFs and APARs, as well as new functionality that we're bringing through it. So the process of applying maintenance is the same, but what's in that maintenance will be different. And you'll see as we go through this review process, the goal would be to ship the process is to ship the new functionality disabled, and when you're ready to consume it, you can consume it with the continuous delivery model. So I always, when I say the continuous delivery levels, I call it 4 levels plus 1. And I'll just go through as a review process with this, what these levels are. So maintenance level is the same thing, is what level is your DB2 base code on PTS and hypers and TE resolution fixes. So it's the same thing that we have today, but what you could now, you'll see in the upcoming slides, you'll be able to see what maintenance level you're at, and the maintenance level is elevated, i.e. lifted, when you hit a certain triggering APAR. So you'll see 501, 502, all the way to 510, the different maintenance levels. The maintenance levels, as we know, is at the member level. So you could have different DB2 members at various different maintenance levels. Coexistence for new maintenance versus old maintenance, or coexistence version 11 to version 12, or version 12 to version 13, as we talk through that. Again, I mentioned before, the new functions within that we're shipping within the PTF stream, they're there and they're part of that conveyor belt, but we're shipping them disabled. And when you're ready to consume them, exploit them, you can. The next level is the catalog level. And with the catalog level, it's a vehicle to enable new functions. So we're just pre-staging the catalog to be able to handle the function levels in the next level. So the catalog changes is at the group level. So you're only going to make the catalog changes once, and the catalog level needs to be at this equal to the maintenance level or below the maintenance level. It can never be above the maintenance level. So it's almost like building an infrastructure where the maintenance levels first, then you go to the first, second floor, you have your catalog level, you go up to the third floor, you have your function levels, and then when you get to the Chris Monken penthouse suite, then you can start taking advantage of the Apple compatible and new functionality. So one of the things that John's going to reiterate multiple times through this presentation, the catalog level changes, i.e. that dreaded catmate name that we have always gotten nervous and our fingers shook, it is a catmate, but it's a very simplistic catmate, very simple, very small, very much an easy consumable piece. So John will talk through that as we go, but it's a catmate, but don't fear it. It's easy. And to be honest with you, the theme here would be the catmate, John designed it to fail. And you're gonna say, what the heck are you talking about, Shabatoni? So if the catalog, when you run the catmate at whatever levels you wanna go, if it fails, you should just restart it and you should be fine. So in one case, I'll use an example later on, my boss, John Campbell, he had a customer that ran the catmate job 76 times in a row in production, online, and it failed. And the 77th time, it succeeded. No outage, no problem. So the next level is the next level in the continuous delivery model is function level. That's, I always refer to as I present, if you've been around, and we have a older seasoned group of people here, almost like turning new functionality on at the subsystem level. So again, it's a third floor of this infrastructure. It needs to have the maintenance level to support it. It has to have a catalog to support it, and the function level just turns that on at the group level. And you will see as we go back and forth through this, you could go forward and backwards with the function level. It just gives you the ability then to take advantage of new functionality. Now, the one part that throws people for the loop, including myself, not all function levels will have a corresponding catalog level. So John will go through his slides here. The example, easiest example is the last catalog change that we're making is function level 509, catalog level 509. But when you get to 510, you'll have catalog level 509 and function level 510. So don't let that alarm you. And then the fourth level is Apple Compat. That's where you have people like Chris Munkin and other people that really want to take advantage of this functionality. And the catalog's there, the DB2 new functionality is turned on. And now at the application level, you can then turn on Apple Compat, whatever function level, Apple Compat, whatever, M504 or M507. And each application then can look at exploiting the new functionality. So it's an island of stability that every application could be different. It's at the, you could rebind statically bound packages. If you put the Apple Compat, the Apple Compat's in the bind statement and also in ZParm. So if you put it in the bind statement, it'll override what we have in ZParms. And we'll want to always have ZParms down level for the worst person. And then the people that want to take advantage of it have it in their bind statement. And then lastly on this slide here is the client Apple Compat level, and that's setting that client Apple Compat level at the driver, the data server driver, to be able to take advantage of new functionality. So again, those are kind of just a review, and that is going to be the same process, the same building blocks going into 13. This is not going to change. Now, I always like doing this. We do when our team does a 360 study. This is one of the first things that I look at. So if you do the display group command, you're going to see various different things within your environment. You'll see down the bottom there, the bottom one, maintenance level, and that will tell you what maintenance level your DB2, each DB2 member is at. And right now we have 2 members at function level 500 and 1 in version 11. And if it's 510, you'd see 510 there, and you'll be able easily be able to see that. And then at top is your catalog level, that you can see where is your catalog level in comparison to everything else, what function level you're at, your highest function level you get to, as well as your current function level. So on this slide here, you'll see that the highest activated function level is 100, and the currently I can only go to 100. And you ask why? Because all members have to be ready. The maintenance level and the catalog level has to be ready for all members before going to it. So if in this case where you're in coexistence, a version 11 member and 2 version 12 members, if you try to do the activate, you get that message. The next view that I like, I think John putting this together on version 12, I call it, this is probably one of the nicest things I've seen as a system programmer. You could go out there and look, and our level 2 or our lab and people like John could look, the sys level updates tells you exactly what happened in your environment. So in this view that we have here, we're only showing 8 of the 9 columns, but you could see if it's activated, if the function, if it was tested, a cat-mate process. So it gives you kind of a historical view of what's going on in your environment. So I think this table is very valuable. And then lastly, before I turn this over to John for the function level process. So the recommendations here is continue on best practices with your maintenance. Obviously, we like to see a customer put maintenance on multiple times a year and shooting for 4. So that DB2 system programming 101, continue on. Now, you can't, you cannot execute the cat mate level to a certain level unless you have the supporting maintenance level that's there. So what we recommend here is, some customers early on would say, I'm going to get the maintenance level 504, then I'm going to run the cat mate to get to 504, and then I'm going to get to the function level at 504 on the same window. The problem is that if there was a problem with your maintenance, and for whatever reason you had to back out PTF 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that supported function level and catalog level 504, you couldn't back that PTF off. So the recommendation would be to do your maintenance 3 or 4 times a year, and when you elevate your maintenance level, stay at least 1 cycle behind on your catalog level, or at the very least to the point where you're not going to back off the DB2 maintenance. Then you can elevate your catalog level. And then once your catalog level is at a certain level, we'll talk different strategies coming up here, then you could activate function levels up to what is supported in the catalog level. And then the last piece of it is the piece with the Apple Compat. When your applications are ready to exploit it, we recommend putting ZParms at down level, maybe function level 500. So if anyone forgets to put the Apple Compat, they'll stay down level until they want to go to a higher level. Be very wary of new packages picking up the ZParm default if you don't follow that recommendation. We had one customer that actually went from it was 505 actually. They put maintenance level 505, catalog level 505, put the function level 505, elevated ZParms to 505, and someone accidentally bound the null ID package for DB2 Connect and caused a production outage. So be wary of that. And the other piece on them, the recommendation for SQL level in DSN-HDEC-P, to put that at the highest level that you'd want people to go to. So when you do your pre-compiles and everything, you can handle that. So ZParms, the lowest common denominator, SQL level and DSN-HDEC-P at the highest level. And then we'll talk through a few times throughout this session. You can always set the current application compatibility special register to toggle your applications in and out, regardless of where they're bound at. So I'll take a breath here, and I'm going to turn this over to John to go through the function levels at this point in time.
All right, thanks, Anthony. Go ahead to the next chart, please. So I'm going to talk about function levels, but before I get into the nitty-gritty details for how to move amongst the function levels, I wanted to just kind of put a timeline on here where we talk about when the function levels had come out. So we've been at this process since 2017 when 501 came out. Now, GA was from prior to that time, and when we started the version 12 journey, we didn't have continuous delivery. It was just shortly before general availability that we came up with the continuous delivery process and everything that we were going to do. So the first function level came out in 2017, and then the last one I'll show on the next chart came out last year. Now, I went through and I picked the heavy hitters, if you will, for each one of the function levels. In the poll that Martin did, it showed where everybody was, and so very few of you are all the way at function level 510 yet. So if you want a nice, concise way of seeing the new function, the main new function epics and stories that were in the function levels, you can look at this thing here. But one of the points that I want to drive home is that we do deliver new functionality that is tied to a particular function level, but we also ship an awful lot of things that are not tied to a particular function level. So in the box in the lower left side of this thing, we say that there's over 100 new DB2 12 features that were delivered after GA that are not tied to a specific function level. So you might ask, why do we ship some things that are tied to a function level and some things that are not? Well, the reason that we do some things for a function level is if we need to make sure that all active members in a data sharing environment have on the proper level of code for that functionality, then we will tie it to a function level. Because before you can activate a function level, every one of the active members has on a level of code that understands, if you will, the function that's coming. Now, if new function is delivered outside of the function level scheme, then you could have a case where some of the members have on the new function APARs and some of them don't. So the behaviors on different members can be different depending on whether they have on, a particular maintenance level or not. So if it's absolutely necessary to have every member have on the same level of code for a function, then we would tie it to a function level. So next chart, please. Okay, so this is just finishing up with function level 509 to 510. So function level 510 here, I will talk about this in greater detail. This came out in April of 2021. Now, Anthony just said in the chart prior to this that a best practice is to change your maintenance, 2 or 3 times a year. And so if that's the case, then every one of you out there should already have on a level of code that would allow you to get to function level 510. So that was with APAR PH33727. So since I'm going to talk more about 510, we can just continue on, Anthony.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you. Okay, so for activating function levels, this is kind of a busy chart now that we have up through 510 and into version 13. I wanted to kind of give a visual for everyone to look at for how we move from one function level to a next. So on the upper line of the yellow boxes, we go from left to right. We go from version 11 all the way up to version 13. Now, between 505 and 510, I just have a few arrows there, but that's from 506 to 509 in that range. Now, the blue arrows up above just give you an indication of how you can move forward. It's not every possibility that you have, but you can go from 100 to either 500 or 501. But then from 500, 501, you can go to any function level greater than that, assuming you have on the proper catalog maintenance. So, but the other thing, and we haven't talked about it yet, is that once you've gone to a particular function level, you can also return to a prior function level. We call these star function levels. Now, that's what all the whole mess of lines that you can see there in between the 2 rows of the yellow boxes. Those lines and those blue arrows are meant to kind of give you a visual for how flexible this process is. So why would you return or go backwards to a star function level? Well, maybe you have a problem, and maybe you don't have a problem, but you only want to allow a new function to be used in short durations of time while you kind of figure things out. And you can use function levels to help gauge or gate when new function can be used. Now, we talk about function levels here, but there's also Apple compat levels that are involved here as well. And if you use Apple compat levels for some new functionality and you do return to a star function level, you might still be able to use the new functionality even though the function level had returned to an earlier function level. So function levels and Apple compat levels work hand in hand, but if you wanted to totally disable some new function, you might have to change an Apple compat level in addition to a function level. So again, the real point that I wanted to drive home here is the flexibility of the continuous delivery model. You don't have to go through each and every one of the function levels to get to where you want to go. In the poll that Martin did, he said several of you are out there in the mid 5 505, 506 range. I personally would love to hear how you had gotten up there. Had you gone straight from 500 to 506, or did you go through each and every one of these things? When Anthony and I present this kind of information, we want to make sure that everyone understands how flexible this process is.
Yep.
So next chart, please.
And John, if you don't mind, one example I'll give, and the problem has been fixed, so there's no worries. My favorite function level is function level 505 with rebind phase in. And a lot of customers wanted to get there. And there just so happened to be a couple availability, a locking issue and one performance issue. But when they went to when the customer went to 505, they ran into the small issue with rebind phase in. And all they had to do is then activate function level 504, and the problem went away until we fixed the problem. So it really gives you that flexibility if you decide to have, if you think there is a problem, that you could always just go back with, very safely with flexibility. And there you go, John.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. So you can only activate to a particular function level if all the active members in a data sharing group are running with a code level that understands that new function level. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. As I said just a minute or two ago, everybody likely has on a 510 level of code right now. And if you don't, you're probably getting close to that. So if you're up at that level, you're going to be able to activate any function level that you want to do. But as we're going through continuous delivery on a release, and now it's going to be version 13, we're putting out the function levels, every 3 or 4 months. And so your code levels will lag behind, what the highest available function level is. So each subsystem does have its very own code level. So if you're trying to activate a particular function level, we will look at the level of the code level of each one of the active members to decide if you're enabled to activate a particular function level. Next chart, please. So let's talk a little bit about the catalog changes in version 12. And so, when Anthony and I were putting this together, Anthony saw this and he was cracking up, especially with the yellow-haired gal in the middle. But I've dealt with Catmate since version 4, and in the old days, Catmate was not as nice as it is today. And hopefully, if any of you have been involved with DB2 for a long period of time, which I believe Martin's poll shows that we've got a lot of experience in this area, hopefully you've seen that the migration process and the Catmates and everything have improved over time. But what Anthony and I are here to tell you is that when you hear the word Catmate, it shouldn't elicit these kind of responses that you're seeing here. It shouldn't make you cringe. It shouldn't make you shake. It shouldn't make you feel like you're about to fall off a cliff or anything else. No sweating should be involved. So fear not, Catmate. And
remember, John, what you said. It's designed to fail in the restart if there is a problem, without any impact.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I will talk a little bit more about that coming up. So, post-GA catalog changes in DB2.12. So we have function levels up through 510, and we had 5 Catmates in those 10 function levels. So 50% of the function levels have catalog Catmate requirements. So that might strike the fear in you 5 different times. But we have in red here that catalog changes can be bundled. Now, what does that mean? That means if you wanted to go from the function level that you're at to a function level 3 or 4 function levels above you, you can run one single Catmate, and we will look at where your catalog is and where you want to go to, and we will make all the required Catmates to get you to from where you are to where you want to go. So you don't need to do 5 separate Catmate jobs. You can do actually just one cat maint, and it will take you there. I think I've got a chart coming up here that's going to drive that point home. But again, I don't expect all of you to remember that there was a cat maint in 502, 503, 505, 507, and 509. Cat maint is smart enough now to where you can give it a catalog level or a function level. And if you give the cat maint a function level, we will determine what the cat maint is for that function level, and we will bring the catalog up to that level. So, you know, don't think of catalog levels as much. Just think about where you want to go with your function level, use that value for cat maint, and we'll make the updates for you. So, as Anthony stated early on, the final function level, I guess we've gone to the next chart. The final function level is 510, and it has a catalog level of 509. So go ahead, next chart, Anthony.
Yeah, sorry about that, John.
No worries. So, okay, so I said that there's 5 cat mains in the development stream, the continuous delivery stream in version 12. And this is what the changes are. And this is why I say fear not cat main. In the 502 cat main, we add the key label column to 4 existing catalog tables. Boom, 4 new columns. 503, it's a global variable. 505, the copy ID column is added to 2 catalog tables. 507, we added 2 global variables. And in 509, we added 1 column to 1 table. So in totality, in those 5 cat mains, we added 7 columns to existing catalog tables, and we added 3 global variables in those 5 cat mains. So when customers think of cat mains, they tend to think about the release type cat mains where we're adding, 40 tables, 15 table spaces, a whole bunch of indexes. We're doing a whole bunch of different things. And these things, even though they're labeled the fearsome, cat mains, these are really small and they are not something that you should fear. So again, fear not cat main. So next chart, please, Anthony. So we've talked about how flexible the continuous delivery process is and how you can go from an earlier function level to a later function level. And that's great. We have the flexibility, but the one thing that I like to talk with customers about is if you want to go from, say, 500 to 510 directly, we make it very easy for you to do that. But you don't want to be surprised by doing that. And so each function level may or may not have an incompatible change with an earlier function level. So I listed here in this chart, the incompatible changes that were introduced with the various function levels. And I'm not going to read through this. This is just kind of an FYI. Now, in dealing with customers, I know that the incompatibilities, if you will, with 504 are the ones that kind of had gotchas for customers. Anthony talked about some of the gotchas that customers had with 505. So our main point in talking about this is before you go from function level A to function level B, just look at the incompatibilities. Make sure you understand what they are and make sure that you've handled them if necessary before going forward. Because what you don't want is surprises as you go through this process. Next chart, please. So for 504, so this was a big one for us because we deprecated some object types. We've been talking a long time in several releases about deprecated object types and how we want everyone to go to universal table spaces. But in reality, you were able to still create those objects and use those objects. But with function level 504, you can no longer create those deprecated object types. So if you did still need to use those things and you went up to 504, you could then go back to an earlier function level and still be able to do that. So the last bullet here says unless you've gotten rid of all your UTS table spaces, you could return to a function level prior to 504 and still be able to do those things if you got into trouble. But everybody should read the writing on the wall where the day is coming where, you know, we won't allow use of those deprecated objects. Okay, so next chart, please.
Yep. And I'll make one point there, John. If you're in a sort of function level 505 and the package that's executing your DDL is at 505, the last bullet item there was John said you can go back to previous function level, or you can set your current application compatibility to a lower level and then perform your DDL.
Good point.
There you go.
So this is just a little bit more about the function level 504 incompatibilities. This is just kind of an FYI for you. I don't want to read through this whole thing necessarily. Let's see. Yeah, so 504 doesn't itself introduce incompatible changes, but we do have those changes that we'd already talked about. I think we can go to the next one.
Yep, I agree. It's function level 510.
Okay, so for function level 510, 510 is a special function level in that there's little to no new release function. We didn't tie any new release function to function level 510, but new release function was delivered in that time frame between 509 and 510. The prerequisite catalog level is 509, so it isn't a case where you needed to make a 510 catalog change before you could activate function level 510. It's 509. Now you can only migrate to version 13 from function level 510. Plus, you have to have the fallback SPE code on. Now, I list the fallback SPE code here. It was in APAR PH37108. That came out at the end of March, I believe. So if you get to 510 and you have on a maintenance level of PH37108, then you're going to be ready to go to version 13 whenever you want to go to version 13. If you're at a lower function level, you might already have on that fallback SPE APAR on, but you need to get up to function level 510 before you could do that. Next chart, Anthony.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. So for function level 510, 510 is interesting in that we have some fencing code in there. We actually want to make sure that you aren't going to have problems with auto-bind situations when you migrate up to the next release. And so we internally have this query that I've shown here to make sure if you have any packages that are active, that you've actually been running, that you rebind those while in version 12 and not when you migrate up to version 13. So if you have any packages, that means one or more, that are actively being executed, and that's whose rel bound value is from before version 11, and they have been used in the last 18 months, then we will prevent you from going to version 13. So this query that I've listed here, we ship in the DSNTI JPE job in version 12 code, so you can get this today, or in the DSNTI JPM part in version 13, which no one has access to yet. Or you can type in this query just to see if you have anything that you're going to need to rebind. You can be proactive and you can run this query now and you can auto bind anything, but if you had 0 rows returned and then you went and executed one of these old packages that you haven't used in the last 18 months, you would then be prevented from activating 510. Now, if you are able to activate 510 and then you do something that this query returns rows, you know, after you've activated 510, we will not prevent you from going to version 13, right? You will have already satisfied the requirement for what you need to do to get to 510. So again, if there are any rows returned here, we will prevent you from getting to 510, but once you get to 510, we aren't going to stop you from going to version 13. We highly recommend that you would rebind those things while in version 12, so you don't have, you know, some of the ping-ponging auto-bind situations in a data sharing environment where we might have to auto-bind something when you go to the version 13 member, and then if you execute it on version 12, you know, you might have to rebind it, auto-bind it there as well. But anyway, so I think everyone should run this query today and just see if you have any things that you might need to take care of. Don't do this the day that you're wanting to activate function level 510. Be proactive and take care of these things so you don't have surprises and things that you have to do. Next chart, Anthony. So right now, again, the 510 function level has been out in the field for 13 months now. So are you ready to go to function level 510? Well, you can run the activate function level with the test option today. You can run it right now and see if your system or data sharing group is eligible to go to 510. Now I ran this on a non-data sharing system in this example that I'm showing here, and I got this. So when the message is displayed, it doesn't have that line in red that I showed there. I just colored it red for you to look at. It will tell you that the sys package query returned rows. That's one or more rows. And we tell you to look at the DSNTI JPE job output to see what those returned rows are. And I think we put it into a file that you can use to quickly rebind anything that you need to do. So the bottom line, towards the bottom, this is non-data sharing, and therefore there's only one subsystem, and its code level is 510 as it shows there. And so the system itself is eligible to go to 510. It's just that that query returns some rows, and those need to be taken care of before we can go there. So next chart, please. Okay, so we talked about how flexible we are in going from function levels to, you know, from one function level to the next, but let's give you a case. For those of you that are at function level 100 right now, or there was a person or two that said that they were in version 11, but if you for some reason wanted to go quickly from function level 100 to 510, we allow you to do that in just 3 quick steps. Now, the assumption here is that all of the active members have on a 510 code level. So to be able to go in 3 steps, all of the members in a data sharing group that are active have to have on that 510 code level. And again, if you follow best practices like Anthony talked about, everybody likely has on the 510 code level as it is. So you can activate function level 500 or 501 from 100. You don't have to go to 500 first. You can go directly from 100 to 501. You run a capmate and you specify a level of 509. You can also specify 510 and we will figure it out. We will internally do all 5 of those capmates for you. You don't have to do the 5 capmates separately. And then you can activate function level 510. So in 3 easy steps, you can go from 100 to 510. Now, in the earlier part of my presentation, I talked about function level incompatibilities. So we give you the flexibility to really quickly go. I mean, you can go from 100 to 510 in minutes, seconds really probably. But make sure that you've looked at the incompatibilities that the various function levels have introduced. You do not want to get surprises when you get all the way up to function level 510. So again, pay attention to those incompatibilities. So, and with that, so Anthony, would you please take us away and give us some more information about migrations plans and paths in regards to 510?
Yep, I could do that. So, you know, obviously the ultimate goal is to get folks to function level 510 as quickly as possible. And you know, John just said there's 5 catalog levels with 7 columns and 3 global variables, if I remember correctly. So you have some options how you want to get to to 510. You could go, you know, one step at a time, 501, 502, catalog changes, and your function level changes, just incrementally step through that. Or you could go through a maintenance window and say, you know what, I think my maintenance level is good. I'm just gonna go, I'm at 501 now. I'm gonna run my cat mate to get me my catalog to 509 and activate 510. So those are all, you could incrementally go through it, jump through it. What is really picking up a lot of momentum in my social circle and the SWAT team social circle is customers are looking at finding one maintenance window, whenever that may be, and then take their catalog level and increment it up, elevate it to 509. So you're sitting there at function level 501, you run these small little changes, your catalog level is at 509, and then at that point in time, you could go to any function level you want whenever your little heart desires. You know, you can jump up to 503, 505, 507, whatever, but you've done the heavy lifting of that, of getting the catalog change and the cat mate with my favorite yellow-haired woman that John chose. So it gives you really a lot of flexibility. It gives you the ability, once you got your arms around it, you can decide how you want to go through it. Now, one thing that one of our large financial institutions, brokerage firms in the United States, they're a little bit worried about all this. And I was like, you know, we'll talk through the different steps throughout later on in a couple slides. But really, if you pick, you don't necessarily need a maintenance window. You could pick a low volume window and get the cat mate done once. Now, if you have a quarterly maintenance window or a maintenance window that's coming up, let's say that I have a customer that they're nowhere near ready to go to 510, but they have a maintenance window this coming weekend. They're in Europe, and they're not going to have another maintenance window till December. So this maintenance window, they already got the maintenance level 510. They're going to increment the catalog. Why they can, they chose to do it during the maintenance window, and then they could go to a function level when they're ready. And so we talk about this. If you have a maintenance window, in this case, this customer, going back to this large brokerage firm, good friends of mine in my social circle, they're like, okay, Anthony, how can I hedge my bets? How can I make this good? So they go, previously, when I went out there and tried to do this online, I ran into timeouts and blockers and problems and everything. And so they get a little frustrated. So our goal here, and I'm going to turn it over to John on the next slide, is to give you the ability to prefetch. And I say prefetch, you're going to prefetch and look at windows that you have the least amount of issues or volume or blockers. And that will give you the ability then to say, you know, I could do some research in a couple of 3 weeks, and maybe 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. on a Saturday night or a Friday night may be the best time to do that. So we want to give you the ability to know what those blockers could be, and you could take action. So John is going to go talk us through the display blockers.
All right, thank you, Anthony. So as Anthony stated, gosh, it's coming up on 2 years ago that we put this out into the field. We wanted to have an online migration solution. We've always kind of sold the migrations as being something that you could do online, but the bottom line is that there's things that application programs and customers can do that can interfere with CatMate. We've got to get an X lock on the catalog DVD, the database descriptor, to be able to do that. And if there are applications that are locking up the catalog, we're not going to be able to do some of these things. So what we thought that we would do is that we would provide instrumentation that would allow you to identify the most common online migration blockers. And these might be wrong running catalog and directory lock holders. And in my experience, Anthony might have some of these as well. There are monitors out there that can get some of these locks that would interfere with CatMate. There can be long-running claims and drains on the catalog, package locks. So there's a lot of different things that can be going on that can interfere with CatMate. So our online migration solution design, we actually provided two methods. We polled the customers, and the customers really liked these two methods the same, and so we decided to provide both of them. We provide a blocking threads function and the display blockers command. And so when I'm talking about here, it's the display blockers command, but the blocking threads function gives you the same information just in table form. So system databases were the initial target, but when we were developing this, we thought, why only allow them to get this information for system databases? Why not allow them to do it for user databases as well? And so we put this out into the field, and you can use this not only to determine if your migration will likely be online, but you can also find out if you've got misbehaving applications and things that are locking up your own databases for long periods of time. So by now, I list the APAR and the PTF here. These have been out in the field for 2 years. So if you don't have this maintenance on, then you aren't following Anthony's suggested maintenance recommendations. So you might want to get these things on. So next chart, Anthony. So I wanted to just quickly give you an example of the display blockers output. There's two screenshots here. The one on the left and the one on the right were run at the exact same time. The only difference is the one on the lower right-hand side has the detail option on it. If you specify detail, it gives you additional detail. So if you look at the left one without detail, it's going to give you one line for everything that may be an issue for you as far as going forward. Now, I ran this for the two system databases, DB2 and DB1. The finger there is pointing to the left of where I specified that. And so if you go into the detail, you can see that on the leftmost column, there's a type column and there's claims. So these claims are on the DB6 database, gives you the DB ID, the space name, the object identifier, and it gives you the age. Now, the age there, we only have, I think it's 11 characters for specifying the duration. So the duration could actually be longer, and I'll talk about that in a second. But see the first few of these things? The first line there, the first couple lines, the age of this claim being held is 2 hours and 3 minutes. Now, if whatever that thing is, that activity that's going on, is running when you try and run your CatMate will not be successful because we won't be able to get the drains and everything off of there to allow us to get the X lock. Now, at the bottom of that list, there's a couple things that were held in microseconds, essentially. So those things are likely not something that would interfere. So our recommendation is, once you determine what your migration window is going to be, run display blockers during that time. Find out if there's any application, batch jobs, or something else that might interfere with your CatMate. Now, the lower right-hand side, again, the only difference is the detail option being specified. You can see in the red rectangle, the short version of the age is, we just give you 2 hours and 3 minutes. But if you specify detail, we'll give you as much of the age as we can. So it's actually 2 hours, 3 minutes, 45.715 seconds. But we also give you the LUID ID, we give you the time when it was required, and we give you other information so you can find out what it is that's running, so you can maybe change the application so it no longer holds the claim that it doesn't need. So this is something that will help you do your migrations online, but it can also help you tune your applications so they don't hold these locks and claims for as long as they are. Maybe you didn't know they were doing it. So Again, this works for system databases and user databases as well. And so with that, I'll throw it back over to Anthony for tell us a little bit more about migration testing methodologies.
Yep, thanks, John. So this is the last slide before we head into the DB2 version 13 slides. So here's the recommendation that we've been preaching from the SWAT team to test this. So when you're testing your online migration in a non-production environment, so we'll start with non-production environment, we're going to take the flip side of what our recommendations are going to be in production. So our recommendation is, if you don't believe John Lyle or John Campbell, Hawken or Anthony, and you're not comfortable with restarting the catmate or jumping through, then our recommendation would be go to your non-production environment and pick the worst possible time. Worst possible time, the messiest, busiest, the ugliest of non-production DB2s, and run the catmate. And actually see if it works. If it doesn't work, then you should then restart it and verify that we're telling you the truth. Restart it and get confidence that the restartability is good. If you can't produce a problem, maybe pick a subsystem where you submit the catmate job and you whack the IRLM out from under you in a non-production environment, force an error. But the ultimate goal would be to get some errors, get confidence, operational confidence in restarting the catmate. So if you had to run it into production, ran into problems, you could feel confident restarting the job. The next, if you go from the non-production environment into production, the recommendation would be prefetch into your windows, like John mentioned, your windows from 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock on Saturday, or 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock on Sunday morning, run the display blockers, prepare for maybe take your online monitors down for that short period of time. And then whether you do it in a maintenance window or do an online change, then go ahead at a low volume time to run the catmate. But give yourself as many things around you to be successful. But if you're not successful and it fails, then you can have confidence restarting it. And as I mentioned early on in their presentation, the European customer that Campbell worked with, 76 times it failed in production, no problems. I think the fingers probably got a little tired from restarting the job. 77th time it worked. So just a methodology if you want to feel confident, run it at a crazy time, and in production run it at a lower time, but have confidence to restart if you need to be. And now I'm going to turn it over to the migration guru to talk through the migration to 13 on, and John's going to finish off the presentation today.
All right, thanks, Anthony. All right, so everybody wants to hear about the version 13 migration process now. The GA for version 13 is next week, right? End of next week, beginning of the next one. So we're within a week and a half, I think, of GA. So you can only migrate to version 13 from Function Level 510 in DB2 12. Code on all the active members must contain the fallback SPE code. That's the PH371088 part that we put out at the end of March, beginning of April. So I talked about how the version 13 migration process early on, way back when, about how this is kind of very different than in previous releases. And so the first thing that I'm going to say here is that there is a catmate when you migrate from 12 to 13, but we are not changing the structure of the catalog during that catmate. So what does that mean? That means we're not adding any columns, we're not creating any table spaces, we're not creating any indexes, we're not doing any of that. No migration SQL at all. There is a catmate, but that catmate is just there to give customers the ability to determine when the migration process completes. Maybe you have a checklist that says you do A, B, C, D, and E is the making the version 13 system available. We give you the ability to push the button to determine exactly when that happens. Now, that catmate does set some internal level and release markers, and we do update the sys level updates catalog table to say that you had migrated, but there's nothing else that we're doing during that time. So why is that important? So typically on a release migration, we would change a lot of the catalog. Existing catalog tables, we would change indexes, and when we would do that, that would invalidate plans and packages that had dependencies on the catalog objects that we were changing. And so now, by not changing the structure of the catalog, we don't do any of those invalidations at all. So we fully expect that there would be no contention between application programs and the migration process itself. The other reason that is a really cool thing, and I like to use the term revolutionary or something like that to very strongly word how big of a deal this is and how big of a change this is for our customer set. The other reason that not changing the catalog is really cool is that we don't have to retrofit the changes to the catalog into version 12, because version 12 will never see any catalog change that is made in version 13. In previous releases, if you kind of paid attention, the fallback SPEs that we had were huge. We had to retrofit the definition of the catalog objects back to the previous release, and it usually meant hundreds of recompiles, which meant many APARs, and those APARs would pull in a lot of other maintenance that you might not have cared about otherwise. So by not changing the structure of the catalog, we don't have a huge fallback SPE that is ugly for you to put on. So you don't have to put on these APARs. We don't have to do all this additional testing of the catalog changes. There aren't any issues and changes in the catalog, so in release coexistence, we don't have issues, and we don't have issues due to the catalog changes in a fallback situation as well. So you will likely hear this with anybody that talks about migration, and hopefully it's me and Anthony, but I'm so excited about this. I think customers are going to love this, and this is the major migration enhancement for version 13. And we expect that because of this, we won't have contention with application programs, no auto-bind ping-ponging, and we expect migrations to be online. Now, there is still that cat maint, and we get a lock for a very short duration so that we can update sys level updates and the other information, but we expect these to be online. If you migrate to version 13 and it is not online, I definitely want to hear about it. We've been working on making release migrations online for several years, and so we believe that we've identified all of them in DB2 products, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a vendor product that could also interfere. So we like to work with our vendors and make sure that we've eliminated these things. So do them online. As Anthony mentioned in the previous chart, doing it at a quiet time might be good, but use display blockers and blocking threads and make sure that you're going to be able to do these things online. But I fully expect them to be online. The only other thing to note here is that the initial catalog level is V13R1M100, not 500 as it was in DB212. Okay, Anthony. So a real quick chart. This is the initial chart for version 13. Again, you can only get to 13 from V12R1M510. There's no skip release support. So the one customer or the couple customers that said that they were still at version 11, you can't go from 11 to 13. You cannot fall back to version 12 after you've activated V13R1M500 or above, and this is the same as it was in version 12. You can, however, return to a star function level. So if you've gone up to 500 or 501 or an upper one, you can go back to an earlier star function level just as you could in version 12. So this is an identical continuous delivery process. I have the little blue box there in the middle where there is a cat maint, but again, we aren't changing the structure of the catalog. So this does change everything. This is new. This is revolutionary. So it's not a traditional release migration. So, no, go ahead. So the first version, let's see, I guess that should say the first DB213. You know, Anthony and I had gone through this many times, and now I see this for the first time. So it's the first DB213 catalog changes are made after you get to V13 R1 M500. So remember, you cannot even go to 500 if you have any active version 12 members. So once, let's see, there's no fallback capability once you've gone to 500 or above, so you can no longer be in release coexistence or fall back to version 12. So since the catalog changes can only be made after function level 500, this is how version 12 would never be exposed to any of those changes. That first catalog level is V13 R1 M501. There's another one, Anthony.
Oh, geez.
V13 R1 M501, and you make that from 500. Once your catalog level is V13 R1 M501, then and only then can you activate function level V13 R1 M501. Now, the last bullet says that the version 13 development cycle will follow the same DB212 continuous delivery model. And I have that red asterisk or star there. And that's, I'm making this statement that we're going to do things the same in version 13. And I know of nothing coming down the pike that would change that, but you never know what the future holds. Version 12, that development cycle and continuous delivery model, we used that for 5+ years and we didn't really change it. But we might evolve, we might get better. So things could change, they could be different. But for right now, we're following the same exact model that we had before. So next chart, please. So new function enhancements will be delivered via the maintenance stream in the form of new function levels like they were in version 12. New function that does require a version 13 catalog change will be available in function level 501. So in version 13, new function is available in essentially 3 different function levels. Some function level is available day 1 in version 13 in function level V13 R1 M100. Then when you go to 500, some other new function is available. And then when you get to function level 501, that's when you get the full complement of the new general availability function in version 13. So yeah, so some of the new functions, not all of them, but some of them do require an appropriate Apple compat level to exploit. And the Apple compat level follows the function level. So if your function level is 500, you can't have an Apple compat level of 501 unless you had fallen back to an earlier star function level. So I think that's, Anthony, next chart. I went through the version 13 stuff really quickly. I love to talk about this stuff. We can talk in as much detail as possible about it, but in our presentations that we give at tech conferences and things going forward, you know, we're going to talk in greater detail about this stuff. But does anybody have any questions? Martin, are there any questions in the chat, or does anybody have anything that they want to talk about in this? I'd love to hear input.
And so would I, but I think you had so much stuff and people were just kind of taking it in. We've got a lot of people that stayed well past into their lunch hour if they're East Coast people. And but the chats, the questions are clear today. So
very good.
Well, I'm going to take control here.
Yeah, our emails are on there, so if anybody has questions afterwards, they can feel free to contact Anthony or myself, and we can get you the answers to your questions.
Right. Okay, I'm going to just wrap up here. I should be showing my screen. And there we are. Big last question here. The only comment we have is that they really like the job you did. So there. Last big question here. This is going to This is going to be a tough one for people. Did you learn anything today? And as you can well imagine, seeing as it's never been presented before, the answer to that is everybody learns something. Ta-da!
Outstanding.
Hardly a
If anybody had said no, I would have wanted to talk to him.
Yeah, they probably work for IBM. All right. Well, with that in mind, I will hide those and go back here and put up our ending screen for our good friends at DBI Software. And with that, I'll cue the music. Wish everybody a great weekend. Thank you, John and Anthony, once again for a fantastic job. People love you. And we'll look forward to seeing you at IDUG in Boston. If people are there, there will no doubt even be more questions for you. But with that in mind, I'm going to wish, again, thank everybody. And we'll see you in 2 weeks for another DB2 LUW session on recovery with Michael Roken in the first week of June. All the best, and thanks again.